Rice. He's Howie Klein, treasurer of the Blue America PAC, and he writes Down with Tyranny. Everybody should go to Down with Tyranny and read him every day. We're going to talk, obviously, about Marjorie Taylor Greene and her new 118th Congress. Apparently, she seems to be in charge of the entire operation. But first, Howie, you have always taught me that the best way to follow politics is salaciously, to pay attention to the gossip. I always say that you offer a salacious civics lesson, and you are always right. Sometimes I don't believe what you're telling me, but this one I find impossible to believe. The gentleman from Alabama, the congressman who threatened to punch Matt Gaetz Friday night after Matt Gaetz voted present instead of for McCarthy. Rogers, is that his name?
Mike Rogers, he's from Alabama.
Right. And I'm looking at a picture of him, and before we started, you told me he has a toupee. And, I pay attention to these things, Howie. I think that is a luscious, verdant head of hair. I don't see the toupee. I don't see it. I don't see it. He is a master of illusion. That is the most convincing toupee I have seen since Bill Shatner in 1976.
Well, yes, it is absolutely a toupee. Many people were hoping that he would get into a fight with Gaetz and that the toupee would come off. But another Richard Hudson pulled him away because he was screaming profanities at Gaetz, which is not something that the New York Times or any of the media talked about, right? So the you see the C-SPAN pictures, but you don't hear what he's screaming. Now, at a certain point, Richard Hudson's hand comes up and covers his mouth and drags him off with his mouth covered. And that's because he was saying horrible things about Gaetz. Now, he was saying personal things and kind of professional things. The problem is this. He has two roles that involve Gaetz. He's the chairman. He's the incoming chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. And Gaetz wants a gavel for one of the subcommittees because Gaetz has a very military district, and it would help him with his constituents if he was the chair of a respectable committee, a subcommittee. And Rogers thinks he's a clown and doesn't want to give him a chair. Now, a gavel, sorry. So that's one thing. The other is that Rogers is also on the committee that decides who gets the committees. So I can't remember what they call it, what the Republicans call it, but they have a committee, and that committee votes who gets on each committee. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but on the other hand, the speaker has a lot of say over that. So apparently, Gaetz made a deal with McCarthy to get that subcommittee, and because of that, it looks like Rogers is resigning from that committee of committees. I heard that today from a friend of mine who works as a staffer for the Republicans.
I see. So over Down with Tyranny, there's a picture of Rogers. I still can't believe that's a toupee. And you put in Vladimir Putin right behind him. Why is Vladimir Putin in this shot over at Down with Tyranny?
Well, just because the Republicans are so sort of in the pocket of Putin, and the funny thing is, it isn't so much Rogers as it is Rogers is not in the pocket of Putin the way Gates is. So the Republicans, for example, want to defund the war in Ukraine. They don't think the U.S. should be putting any money into it, and Gates is one of the people who stands for that. So that's why it's a little funny.
Yeah. So
a little.
All right. So in this community that I've built here over the David Feldman Show, most of the people who speak the loudest on the show, and I have tremendous respect for them, they discount Russiagate. They insist that Putin had nothing to do with getting Trump elected, nothing to do with Dana Rohrabacher, nothing to do with these Russian senators or the NRA.
Look, I don't want to fight with your listeners, but what can I say? They're wrong about it, and you know that, and I know that, and just because a couple of loudmouths think otherwise doesn't make it right. But I like I said, I don't want to fight with them.
Right.
Why don't we leave that alone?
Let's not relitigate the past. And Putin is still funneling money to these Republicans.
Well, look at George Santos. I mean, I don't want to fight with your, all the George Santos fans who listen to your show, because I know they're loud and, But, I've written about the guy's name, but some Russian plutocrat who's very much part of the inner circle of Putin gave a tremendous amount of money to Santos for his campaign. Now, so he had a lot of straw donors giving money, including his cousin, who gave $56,000, and that was kind of legal, kind of. Well, straw donations are illegal, but if you can't really prove that this was a straw donation, so let's call that one legal, even though it isn't really legal. But let's call it legal. There is a lot of thought now that the $700,000 that Santos put into his campaign came right from the Kremlin, right from that Russian oligarch. So yes, they're still interfering. The idea with them is let's buy members of Congress, let's buy senators. It's so inexpensive, and that was the goal.
Wait a second, George Santos, the newly elected congressman from New York, is an archbishop in the Catholic Church. You're saying he can be bought by the Russians? I mean, this guy, when he leaves Congress, George Santos may be elected pope. Is he that easily?
Wait, wasn't that already in his?
Yes, it is. Biography? Yes,
already elected pope.
Now, he's been lying, right? He's still lying.
He's basically been lying about everything. I mean, everything, and.
Continuing.
And the problem is when you lie and you say you're a Jew, that's one thing. You may anger some people, but he's been lying about some other things that are in a different category, like his campaign finances. Like There are certain things that are illegal.
Right.
Certain things are just idiotic, like saying I'm a Jew when you're not a Jew,
right.
And then saying you're a Jew. I never said I was Jewish. I said I was Jew. Because he wrote many, many times that he was Jewish in his campaign propaganda. But in any case, Santos is such a clown that he had his campaign finance chair, or not chair, but his campaign finance staffer, calling up wealthy Republicans and doing an impression of McCarthy's chief of staff. So he would say, "Hi, this is Dan. I'm McCarthy's chief of staff.
Wow.
And I really want you to give money to George Santos. It's urgent and really, really important to the future speaker."
That's what Trump used to do. Trump used to do that.
Trump, he's still doing it.
He's still doing it, but he would call up and say, "I'm like Barron something," and he would.
Oh yes, Barron. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. So.
The point is that Santos is just a liar. He lies about everything. Some of the things just are embarrassing, but some of the things are actually illegal. And now he's finally done something that's going to piss off the Republicans, which is he has pissed off their donors, and that they can't handle.
Right.
So that just came out today, and that's going to be a breaking story this week.
By the way, who lies and says they're a Jew? You're supposed to lie and say you're not a Jew. Did somebody explain that to him?
So he's in a very Jewish. Well, is about 30 some odd percent Jewish, but a lot of the donors are Jewish. So you know Great Neck, that area.
Yeah, of course.
That's in the district, and that's a very Jewish area. So he that whole bullshit with him being a Jew, that really came from wanting to get Jewish contributions. That's what that was about.
I see. So tell me about who is Tom Emmer? He was on the Sunday talk shows. He was running the Republican congressional campaign, right?
He was running the NRCC, their version of the DCCC. So he was in charge of trying to get Republicans elected to the House. And but there's a lot of other things that he is. Like right now, he's the number 3 Republican in Congress. He's the whip. He's the majority whip as of, I guess, today. So how does that happen? Especially when the Republicans were so disappointed in how they did in the midterms, and this is the guy who was in charge of that. So but one of his other big jobs was he was one of the senior members of the House Financial Services Committee, which is the most corrupt committee in Congress, because that's where the banksters all go to put their money in the people who will do their bidding, and he's certainly someone who would do their bidding. And one of the people whose bidding he did in a very, very egregious way was Sam Bankman-Fried. You remember him from TFX. So TFX laundered a lot of money into Emmer's pockets. Also, Emmer would say, "Okay, we need money for this candidate, or we need money for that candidate," and they would do what he said. So he very much was indebted to Sam Bankman-Fried. And when Sam Bankman-Fried came in front of the House Financial Services Committee for an oversight hearing, I have the video of it up on my blog, and all Emmer would do was say, how wonderful he was. Mr. Bankman-Fried, isn't it true that you are the most wonderful person on the face of the earth?
And remember, you're under oath.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, he's not in jail, and he was on Fox this morning saying how domestic spending is out of control, and the Republicans are going to get that back under control. And what that means is cutting Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, Obamacare subsidies, things like that. And
firing IRS agents, you write.
The IRS agents who, all of the IRS agents who were hired, far less than the 87,000 that the Republicans are making up out of nowhere, are the ones who have to do with audits are charged with doing audits of people whose annual income is $400,000 a year. Now, it's not a rule, but generally speaking, someone who's making $400,000 a year is generally a millionaire, right? You don't have to make $1 million a year to be a millionaire. So what they're not are poor, struggling, working class Americans. Someone who's making $400,000, even in New York or LA, is very wealthy, and that is who hasn't been paying their taxes. And people who are suspected of not paying their taxes are the people who are going to be audited. And of course, the Republicans are so horrified about that is the very first piece of legislation that they're bringing up, which is going to be Monday night.
That's incredible. That the very first, I'm not a big fan of Nancy Pelosi.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry?
And they're proud of the fact that it's the first. They're all over TV bragging. This is our first piece of legislation. Of course they lie about it, and they say it's about saving American workers from being audited. That's what they claim. But there are no American workers who will be audited under this program. None. Zero.
When Nancy Pelosi got the gavel in 2019, the first bill, I think it was H.R. 1, was House ethics, right? What was that big bill?
Well, no, House ethics. I don't think that's a bill. That's something else. That's a rule.
But what was her first bill?
Republicans already did House ethics. They abolished it.
I'm sorry, you broke up.
I mean, that was the they did before trying to pass any legislation where they got rid of House ethics.
The Republicans got rid of that. The Republicans got rid of. They're defunding the office for House ethics, right?
They don't want any ethics. They're against ethics.
But what was the first bill that defined Pelosi? It was the first thing she introduced on day one.
I don't remember.
But it didn't pass. It never passed.
No. He doesn't bring up bills that don't pass. It may not have passed the Senate. It certainly wouldn't have not passed the House. Anything that she brings up passes the House.
Okay, so Tom Emmer is smarter than Scott, who ran the Republican Senate campaign, right?
I don't know. Neither of them is.
So you have something over at Down with Tyranny, a poll from Data for Progress, which shows a majority of voters say they would be perfectly satisfied with Congress raising taxes on the wealthy to support social spending.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we taking pitchforks? Why aren't the people who stormed not that I'm saying anybody should storm the Capitol, but it is the wrong people are showing up, let's say, to protest the Capitol, aren't they?
Well, they have their own situation of what they're angry about. But yes, what you're saying is basically liberals have lots to be angry about too. And now they're really going to have a lot to be angry about because we're in a situation where Republicans are going to be passing bills. Now, it's easy to say, well, nothing is going to become law because there's a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president. And how quick do you think Mr. Bipartisan president is going to sell us out?
Right. Were you surprised by everybody voting for Hakeem Jeffries? The solidarity? Were you upset by that?
No.
You thought it was a good idea?
No. That's the way they do it. That's it's performative. It doesn't mean anything. It's obviously he's not going to be speaker. There was no one who was going to vote against him.
Okay. There's going to be investigation into Schiff and Cheney and Benny Thompson and the January 6th committee. Is that going to be real? Is Kevin McCarthy really going to investigate the January 6th committee?
Maybe. Well, yeah. I mean, look, he's now controlled by the Freedom Caucus radicals. Not even the Freedom Caucus, just the real radicals in the Freedom Caucus. So they're, if they want these things, it doesn't cost them anything. He'll give it to them. Someone said on Twitter the other day, how long before they bring up the vacate the chair rule, where they would be able to call for a vote of whether or not he can remain as speaker. And I said, you know what? I think never, because he'll do whatever they want all the time.
Right. So let's talk about the back and forth that I've been having with some of my listeners. And you write about this over at Down with Tyranny. Is there something progressives in Congress could learn from the fascists? How about winning tactics? So we look at those 20 far-right bozos who are willing to shut down the entire legislative branch over, I don't even know what they were fighting for, and yet we can't find.
They're fighting for something very important. They want to be able to defund or privatize, I should say, Social Security and Medicare. That's what this fight is about. That's what they want. So they're, it's a tactic that you have to do this in order to get to this, and ultimately what they want to do is get rid of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid.
And so
they've been fighting for that for 100.
And so where are our 20 on our side who are? Let me. I'm sorry.
I'll take a half dozen.
Take a half dozen. Is it smart? A lot of people wrote to me saying, we want adults. We want to be adults. We have to keep the government functioning. What you're suggesting is childish. It's a temper tantrum. You don't get things done that way. And
really, look what the fascist fringe of the GOP just got done.
So, would you be willing to support a dozen Democrats who say we're going to shut down the legislative branch unless you give us Medicare for all? Is that immoral? Is that childlike? Is that a temper tantrum to find 12 Democrats who say there's nothing more important than Medicare for all, and no wars, no funding for wars, screw the bond market, we don't care, no Medicare for all, if you don't shut down the health insurance companies, no legislative branch?
That's not the way it goes. It's like we want Medicare for all. You want wars. We'll vote for your wars if you give us Medicare for all. So it's not like we'll shut down. It's like, they'll shut down. You're not going to shut down. You don't have the power to shut down. They'll shut down by not giving Medicare for all. Will I support that? Yes, I totally support that. And I look for candidates who might possibly do that. Are there candidates who are doing that? So far, not. But we'll see what happens now, because Biden is going to make some deals with the Republicans, and let's see how horrible those deals are, and let's see if if they're going to. I predict that there will be Democrats who won't go along with those deals. I don't know that there'll be enough of them, but there'll be some.
What is wrong? I'm really asking you this because I was wrestling with this over the weekend and going back and forth, and I was getting a little emotional with some people. Shut it all down. I believe it when I say it. Any government that cannot provide Medicare for all is not worth keeping open. And what are you so afraid of if the government shuts down? So that's coming from, I'm being emotional. But I kind of mean that. That what happens if you shut down the legislative branch? If you do what Matt Gaetz did, if you do what Boebert did, and you just plant your feet and say, no, it's not going to happen. Eventually you say they will they'll say these people mean business. The Progressive Caucus means business. We have to deal with them. That's what you're saying.
Yes. That's exactly what you're saying.
And yet they don't. They don't.
Sorry?
And yet they don't. They don't do that, do they? They don't. The squad, the Progressive Caucus, Pramila Jayapal, who I like, they define themselves.
First of all, even if Pramila wanted to do that, and I don't know that she does, but even if she did want to, her caucus wouldn't follow her. She wouldn't remain chair very long. The Progressive Caucus is not that progressive. I mean, they're more progressive than others in Congress, but it's not the kind of progressive that we wish they would be.
Right. And is there any other caucus, like a Freedom Caucus, that progressives have that could be more.
No, I mean there's a squad. You know, that's the most progressive part of the Progressive Caucus, and they've even the squad. I'm a little bit nervous that they're going to start taking in some of these phonies who aren't progressive at all. You know, people. You know, they're already talking about some of the worst people who have been elected.
Okay, so
you know, people like, what's his name? That guy from Orlando, Maxwell Frost.
Right.
He's one of the real bad ones, and they're already like, I don't know that he'll ever get in the squad, but he's already in the Progressive Caucus. And then you know, another one terrible who this is a guy. He was mayor of Long Beach, Robert Garcia. He was a Republican for most of his life, not just a passive Republican. He started 2 Republican clubs in Long Beach. He was the West Coast coordinator for George W. Bush when he was running. This is a really bad guy. And now that you know, you have to be a progressive in order to win elections in the Long Beach, suddenly he's not just a Democrat, he's a progressive. A year ago, he was the last mayor in America to be fighting for incinerators that were killing people with bad air. That was his big fight. He wanted to keep an incinerator open. And now he's suddenly in the Progressive Caucus. I mean, he's already in the caucus. God forbid they'll put him in the squad too. I don't think they will, but they could, because some of the people in the squad, they just elected him to be president of the Democratic president of the freshman class. This clown I'm talking about, this Republican. He's now the Democratic president of the freshman class. So, you know, and when you talk to some of these congressmen, you tell them, did you know he was a Republican? No. Did you know he was fighting to keep an incinerator open? No. He's a really nice guy. I had no idea.
Right. Well, over at Down with Tyranny, you give some names of some newly elected Democratic Congress people: Summer Lee from Pennsylvania, Greg Casar from Texas.
Hey, he's great. You just named the 2 great ones.
And maybe Becca Balint from Vermont. Marie.
She might be as well. I don't know her. I've never spoken with her, so I don't know. I've heard good things about her, but that doesn't mean that she's good. I just heard good things about her.
So we should pay attention to Summer Lee from Pennsylvania,
yes,
and Greg Casar from Texas. Maybe Becca Balint, Marie Glueson.
Yeah, I have a feeling to be good. I have a feeling Becca's going to be good. I don't know. I have to get to know her first, but I have a good feeling about her.
Chris DeLuzio of Pennsylvania.
I do know Chris, and we'll see. You know, he's in a very difficult district. I mean, this is a guy who won an R+1 district. So we'll see if he's going to be as progressive as he really is. In other words, I know where his heart is. Let's see how he is when it comes to governance. And I don't know the answer to that. I put him in that list because I feel good about him.
Right. Delia Ramirez of Illinois.
Yeah. So I haven't talked to her, and I just heard from mutual friends of ours that she's great. I'm hearing all good stuff about her, and my tendency is to want to believe that.
And Jill Takuda of Hawaii.
Yeah, I don't know why I put her name in. But again, you know, people are telling me she's good, and she might be, and we'll see.
Okay.
I mean, some of the ones who I didn't include, I know are terrible, and I didn't want her to be in the same category as people like Robert Garcia, who's awful.
Before you go, how's the rice? What do you tell everybody what you're making?
The rice?
Yeah, what are you making?
Oh, I'm making a very amazing dinner tonight. Absolutely amazing. I got carried away at around 4 a.m. and started cooking, and as you hear, I'm still doing it. So, tomato soup, like, you know, from scratch, you know, right from heirloom and Roma tomatoes, and like very creamy. And how do you get it creamy, Howie? Well, I use oat milk, and that makes it creamy. It's completely delicious.
Okay.
So there's that. Then I made a cabbage salad. Do you know cabbage salad?
I swear to God, I made a cabbage salad today with tofu. I swear to you.
fantastic. So an Asian cabbage salad.
Red cabbage.
I
Yeah.
I considered using tofu also, but in the end I decided not to. But it's just so great. I mean, you cut the cabbage really, really thin, and you cut the red pepper really, really thin, and you cut the red onions really, really thin. And I made an amazing dressing, like a sesame oil dressing.
Wow.
So that's the second course. And then after that, I have like dirty rice. So what's dirty rice? It's where you cook the rice with lentils that have soaked all day, or all night, and all day in in water and garlic. So that's cooking now. And then over that, I'm going to be serving carrots and Ezeki, which is a kind of seaweed, like black stringy seaweed. So carrots and Ezeki and onion. That's the vegetable course.
Fantastic.
And that's dessert. And I baked chocolate chip cookies.
Vegan chocolate chip cookies.
Of course, vegan.
Right, right. Okay, before you go, Brazil, what was your friend said? What was the joke your friend said? I retweeted it. It was very funny.
Yes, my friend Harry. You know Harry?
Maybe.
Harry said, he listens to the show. Oh, he must be so excited right now. You said his name. Harry said, Trump may sue the Brazilian insurrectionists for the copyright infringement.
What is the role Republicans played in that insurrection? We know Steve Bannon had something to do with it, right?
Well, Steve Bannon has been encouraging it on his podcast from since the day after Lula won. He's been carrying on about it. But Jason Miller, one of the Trump aides, actually was, I don't know if he was arrested, but he was definitely not permitted to leave. He was in Brasilia.
Oh, right.
And they caught him at the airport.
Right.
So I don't, I'm trying to watch for that, and maybe there's a development, and maybe they let him go by now, or maybe they're still holding him, or, maybe they put a gun to his forehead and someone pulled it by accident.
Right.
But
right. We talked
But
about,
anyway,
I talked about Jason Miller earlier, and I mentioned that the son, Bolsonaro's son, met with Jason Miller in America, but I completely forgot that he was detained in Brazil.
at the airport.
Lula is going to handle this a little differently, we hope, than Joe Biden.
Well, he is handling it differently already. The last time I looked, they had already arrested 4,000 people within 24 hours. So, they didn't let them all go home to their villages and towns and then have to look for them for the next 2 years. They arrested them that day. So there were 4,000 in some kind of detention right now. And, I'm sure they're not going to shoot all of them, but they should shoot some of them, because then they won't do it again.
And he has some special powers now that are not quite dictatorial, but authoritarian, that will last for about a month. He's running the police now, Lula, right?
Well, the problem was the federal district, of Brasilia, they had, the governor and his chief of security were cooperating with the insurrectionists, and
Right.
they fired them both.
Right. This guy is fired, the other guy is suspended. Right, right. Well, as they say in Brazil, looking at America, can it happen here? It's like I remember a time when we would look at Brazil and say, could that happen here? And anyway. Yeah. Is stability overrated? I'm not advocating violence, but Americans seem intoxicated by stability, this fear that don't rock the boat, the most powerful, wealthiest country in the history of civilization. If you rock the boat, the whole thing collapses. You can rock the boat here in the United States, can't you?
We just saw what happened. Right wing rocked the boat. They rocked the boat big time and got everything they asked for.
Right. A little.
Everything. same. They got it all.
Right. But the lefties don't rock the boat. Don't rock the
You know
boat.
that song by the Hughes Corporation?
Rock the boat. Our love is like a ship on the ocean. Yes.
Don't rock the boat, baby, rock the boat. You should be playing that as our exit music.
I don't think they were singing about politics. I think they were singing about one specific little man in a boat. That was always what I thought. They were just singing about one little man in a boat. Did you work with them?
No.
They were not. They were bubblegum.
I was working in those days. I was like a child.
Did you ever work with a bubblegum band that just you couldn't help yourself? They were just, you knew they wrote catchy hooks, but they had no depth.
Yeah. I did. Okay. Well, maybe the music didn't have depth, but look, Don't Rock the Boat, Baby, that has depth.
Yeah, it just play. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know the Ramones.
I worked with a couple of artists like that. I mean, Reprise didn't have them, but Seymour every now and then at Sire would sign someone like that for whatever reason.
How close were you to the Ramones?
Pretty close.
Because when you listen,
I'm closer with them than anyone else in any record company was. I knew them from before I worked for their label, and I was a big advocate for them, helping them to get gigs in San Francisco, having them on the radio, writing about them. So, they saw me as an ally. And then when I came to work for Sire, they were happy. I was unable to break them. They were just a band that was never going to break. Although they're well known worldwide and sell tons. Even though they're all dead, tons of merchandise of theirs. Their estates are worth more than they were ever worth when the guys were alive.
And they wrote short little songs that had hooks, right? They knew what they were doing. They were
absolutely.
Howie Klein.
They were great.
Yeah. Howie Klein is the founder and treasurer of the Blue America PAC, and he writes over at Down with Tyranny, which everybody should be reading. Who are the candidates that you want us to send money to?
Lucas Kunz. He's running for Senate against that guy who ran away, the fist-pumping guy in Missouri.
Hawley.
Josh Hawley. Lucas Kunz is running for Senate against him. Great candidate, amazing. I mean, everyone who's seeing his video is saying this is the new standard for announcement videos. It's like so amazingly good.
Well,
and if you haven't seen that video, go to Down with Tyranny, take a look at the video. It's on a couple of different pages. And hear that?
I know you have to go. I know you have to go. But this guy, his name is Mike Rogers. And you're saying he has
Mike Rogers is the guy with the wig, yes.
I cannot believe. Now, somebody told me that the head of CPAC, Matt Schlapp.
Yes, he's a homo. Yes, we know that.
Oh, I heard he was into women. That was the rumor I heard.
He put his hands on a male staffer's crotch. And then
I know. I was making a joke. Is he done?
No, he's a Republican. He can go on forever. He could do it 10 times. Unless they have a picture, nothing happens. So I'm literally holding, and I've got somebody on the other line now.
Goodbye. Thank you, Howie Klein.
Bye.
Follow Howie Klein over at Down with Tyranny on Twitter. His handle is at Down with Tyranny. Down with Tyranny. Read him every day over at Down with Tyranny. It's great. I mean, it's a civics course, but it's salacious. It's delicious. Read Down with Tyranny every day and donate to the candidates who Howie tells you to donate to because he's always right. Howie Klein is always right. Well, if you've been enjoying these episodes, let me ask you to subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. And go to my website to sign up for office hours. We do office hours every Friday night at 8 p.m. I'm there for the first hour, 2 hours. I talk to all my listeners. I You can air your grievances, as people usually do. And so come to office hours. It's every Friday night at 8 p.m. All you need is Zoom. Go to my website for the link. Or what you can do is subscribe to my newsletter. It includes the link to Friday night's office hours. And the best way to subscribe to my newsletter is by going to my website. I think that covers it all. And I've got this new subscribe button. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak.